we go into a country and find them, Afghanistan, for example, and if you were to ask our military, how's the war on Afghanistan going? Well, the war in Afghanistan is being modeled and conducted in an asymmetric fashion where we leave the buildings intact, but we're looking in the cracks for the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
In the old days of asymmetric war, we just invade the country, and like for example, the Iraq invasion was a symmetric war.
Mm-hmm.
We just went in there, but that was a limited one because I mean, in fairness, Iraq had 25 million citizens, I believe, at the time, versus America.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a contest. It was like the cedar attacking the weed, the thistle.
Mm-hmm.
America has not faced a real adversary like Russia and China since World War II.
Mm-hmm.
So we do not have the war readiness to face an actual adversary hand to hand. And the military writings of our generals have stated that. Meanwhile, Russia, China, and Iran have been studying and preparing to fight America in an asymmetric fashion, the same way that we have been doing in Afghanistan. They know they can't face us face to face, so they have come up with a war doctrine, a military doctrine, to combat America in a way that we don't. That's difficult. For example, Russia would not put an aircraft carrier in the ocean and try to just face our aircraft carrier battle group. They just wouldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But they have weapons that they've come up with that are, and China has too, and so has Iran. They have hypersonic missiles that travel above 7,000 miles an hour that cannot be stopped.
Oh, my goodness.
And if you were to think about it, a missile going 7,000 miles an hour that is able to skim around the ground and go around radar and dodge and weave and try to evade the countermeasures that, for example, that machine gun, I forget the name of it, the Gatling gun on the ships that they have to shoot on missiles.
I think I know you're talking about. I can't think of the name of it. I was going to say it's Galveston, but it's Gatlin. It's something like that. Yes, but I do know what you're talking about. But go ahead.
In past history, that's what we would use to the American military would use that. That's to try to shoot down a skimming missile approaching at a few hundred miles an hour. Well, now Russia and China have come up with hypersonic missiles that travel at 7 to even faster, 10,000 miles an hour. We don't have a way to stop those.
Oh, my goodness.
So if you can imagine one going after an American aircraft carrier, there is an actual concern that could happen. Also, in a few years ago, our U.S. military did a mock computer simulation of a war against Iran in the Persian Gulf against Iran. Mm-hmm. The computers ran a simulation, and in the first day, Iran sunk an aircraft carrier.
Oh, my goodness. Almost sounds like a battleship game.
It was, yes.
Wow.
And then they ran it again and again and again, and they kept sinking it. They were using little boats to distract. They were using the shotgun effect of thousands of missiles at the same time toward our ships in the Persian Gulf were sitting ducks. Mm-hmm. And we have measures of missiles to shoot down some of theirs, but a ship only has so many countermeasures. If Iran were to shotgun 1,000 missiles to an aircraft carrier, what do you do?
Mm-hmm. Exactly it. And what is the U.S. doing in terms of building up the military, and especially with the budget cuts? Are they doing everything they can, or are they just going to stay neutral or just say, we'll do what we have?
Well, that's the interesting thing about Donald Trump. He has vowed to rebuild the military, and in our last budget that he passed, the military asked for, it was $700 and something billion, and Trump gave him something like $800 and something billion. He went over and above. But the interesting thing about Trump's budget, and ever since he got into office, that's one of the things I've been watching with Donald Trump. He is very military minded, and he likes the military, and he vowed that he was going to rebuild the military just like Reagan did. Mm-hmm. When Trump was inaugurated, he did something very interesting and symbolic. He had 10 officers from the military stand behind him momentarily while he was giving his inauguration speech. I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember, yes.
It was a symbolic gesture. I saw it happen. It was there, and it was to show that the military is going to be a part of his administration. He has also said that he wants military parades. He wants to really push the military. So in his budget, he wants a lot of new equipment, and the budget that just passed includes, and I'll get this, Mike, it has like 4,000 orders for a new. Now, our military used to have the Humvee. You know, in the Iraq War, we had the Humvee. But the Humvee wasn't doing too well with the roadside bombs, so they recreated the Humvee, redesigned it, and they came up with the MRAP, which was those SWAT-looking vehicles. Mm-hmm. You know, the SWAT police vehicles.
Right, I remember SWAT, that's right.
They look like the Wells Fargo trucks, you know, armored money trucks. Mm-hmm. And so they built a lot of those, but those ended up being cumbersome. They're heavy. They're top heavy. They are roadside bomb proof, but they're not really as maneuverable as the military wanted. So the military has now been scrapping that, and they're selling those to sheriff departments in America. And you've noticed that police departments are getting a lot of them. And now they recreated the MRAP to a new version of the two put together, the Humvee and the MRAP put together, and they call it the Joint Light Military Vehicle. And Donald Trump ordered about 4,000 of those in the last budget.
Wow. That is something. Oh, my goodness.
They come from Wisconsin. And 4,000 of them. He also ordered some new warships, destroyers, tanks. So if someone were to scratch their head and wonder what is Donald Trump up to, you know, history's going to tell us. If it's 5 years in the future, we'll know. But to the person who scratches their head and wonders what's going on, I wonder if Donald Trump's getting ready for a war. Mm-hmm. I really do.
And of course, some people wonder, is it going to start one? Is it going to be drawn in or something? But I guess we'll see what happens in 2019. We'll get back to more on that. You listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com. Powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@SonicWebStudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, this program is being brought to you by the Senior Reserve Group. When you start thinking about retirement, who are you going to call about Medicare? Why call the best? Evan Fine of Senior Reserve Group specializes in Medicare, health, and long-term care insurance. Evan can be reached at 1-800-650-9357. That's 1-800-650-9357. Or email to evanfine@seniorreservegroup.com. Evan is licensed in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Delaware, South Carolina, and Florida. We're here with pastor, musician, watchman, and host of Watchman Cry, Nathan Leal. Also on podcast and the internet, you can go to watchmanscry.com. He's also appeared on Hagman and True News with Rick Wiles, and we've talked a lot about all the prophecies and what's happening with America and a lot of interesting things and what is going on. And, of course, as mentioned, you've been on Hagman and True News with Rick Wiles. And tell us how you got involved with us.
Well, when you put out interesting topics, people that are interesting and can be viewed as a little bit spooky, Mike, because they are, it's going to get people's attention, so then they want to hear what you have to share, and that's what I do. You know, it's interesting. You know, the Drudge Report, very popular website.
Yes.
It's a news, a place to go aggregate website that gathers a lot of different news stories. I mentioned that I put an article up about EMP, people having EMP glimpses, dreams, etc. And I have an article about that. When my sister told me that she had a dream about it, I published it. A few weeks after I did that, the Drudge Report put out a story about a declassified document from the U.S. government about the same thing.
Oh, my goodness.
They did. It was a few weeks ago. And they referenced an article, or actually a report, that at the time was classified by our military, and it had been declassified. So I went and looked at that article, and then I went through the links, and before I knew it, I was down a bunny trail of military articles that had been declassified, Mike, and I downloaded them, and I've been looking at them, and they are they're spooky when you read them because they're published by our actual U.S. military.
Oh my goodness!
There's an article. One of them that's been declassified, and it's called "Nuclear EMP Attack Scenarios and Combines Armed Cyber Warfare" by Dr. Vincent Pry, and it was a report that was given to the commission to us. The U.S. government formed a commission in the early 2000s to study the possibility of our adversaries like Russia or China using EMP devices to cripple the United States. They wanted to know, is it possible that Russia and China could do this to us? So they studied it, and they got scientists and analysts, experts, people who know this kind of thing, to analyze it, and they made a lot of reports that were classified. They had meetings. But since the last several years, it's been now that committee no longer exists.
Mm-hmm.
They broke it apart. It's gone on, but the article still exists.
Wow,
so
that is
the articles have been declassified. So I have one, and I just want to share one thing that's in this article. May I?
Go ahead.
This is from the U.S. government.
Go right ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay, it says right here in this, and this is not from a crazy pastor or someone that's at the end of the world carrying a sign downtown.
Just like Left Behind. You're right. Mm-hmm.
This is from actual people with credentials and congressmen and experts. So this article says nuclear EMP attack is a part of the military doctrines, plans, and exercises of Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. And it is a revolutionary new way of warfare that they have been working on. And it's called many things by many nations, but in Russia, China, and Iran, it is called sixth-generation warfare, or non-contact warfare, or electronic warfare, or total information warfare, or cyber warfare. So these are actual things that they have written about. And some U.S. analysis, a very small number, paying attention, call it Cybergeddon or blackout war.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a military doctrine that Russia, China, and Iran, and North Korea have on their books. And here in America, though, it says there's an ignorance of this military doctrine. And because of the ignorance and failure of the United States to take note of it, we are in trouble if they were to use this technology. Now, here's where it gets a little spooky. They say that if this technology were to occur, and if Russia were to explode a nuclear bomb, like from a satellite, 250 miles in space over America, it would fry the electronics of all the every computer, every ATM machine. People would not be able to get their ATM cards. They couldn't go to the store. Their cars would no longer work. The power grid would be down. Imagine, Mike, if right now is a normal day, but by the end of the day, no one in America can use their ATM card to take milk home or groceries or diapers by the end of the day. And if an EMP were to go off, it would fry the high voltage transformers that exist in power generating stations. Those high voltage transformers are not easy to replace. They take 6 months to a year to replace. And the only place to get them at the moment, well, I won't say only, but there's a limited place to get them. They're made offshore, not in the United States. So the United States would go black for 6 months to 2 years. Now, this paper also says that within 1 year, if the United States were to try to survive a grid down situation, within 1 year in the United States, 90% of Americans would be dead.
Wow. And I was just going to ask you about that. How long the United States, if it were to happen to be blackout, 6 months to 2 years? That is shocking. And I was just going to ask you that, and I'm just glad you mentioned it. And, of course, during that time, 6 months to 2 years, say a blackout were to happen, what would people do? So it's like, how would they adjust? I guess that's just a question.
Well, there's been some renditions, TV, like, for example, the TV series Jericho that was on a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They had an EMP during that series, and the people tried to survive. There's a book out called 1 Second After, and you can get it at Barnes & Noble. That talks about the EMP. But as an example, here's an example